welcome to News Express on Africa Business Radio, exclusively brought to you by Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. Of course, starting as always from the front page, now with the topmost headline: Fintech funding industry projected to hit $291.5 billion in 2021, data show. And just below that headline, we have inflation slam creeps on Nigeria, exposing fiscal policy. And subheadings right under that: inflationary pressure driven by rising food prices. Consumers feel ghostly pinches in their pockets. Naira devalued. Electricity tariffs up despite COVID-19. Stamp duty implementation driven hard. Goodbye, neighbors. Borders remain closed. And over to the summary section, we have there federal government, states, local government share 639.901 billion naira. And over to the investment, finance and investment section, broadening capital markets reach. And below that one, NNPC cuts 2019 losses by 99.7%, and that one is on page 23 of Business AM. And of course, joining us for conversations is the publisher Business AM, Mr. Philip Isakwa. Good morning, Mr. Philip. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Right. Now, let's begin our conversation with the inflation slam story. This story points back to inflation numbers which were up in September, as it was in August as well. Of course, a lot of analysts in that story pointing to a number of factors, one of which is a devalued domestic currency. But then again, we cite another headline talking about the IMF's outlook from last week, where it reduced the country's economic outlook from a decline of 5.3% to 4.3%. You know, so does this particular IMF projection now, does it make the whole inflation situation any less severe at this point?
I don't think inflation is going to be easier. I mean, the IMF has looked at the global economy and has seen a little bit of upside in the sense that the lockdown that started in March, across different economies of the world, has started easing gradually. Many economies have started reopening. Unfortunately, in Europe and America, we are hearing about a resurgence of COVID-19. America, in the US, the numbers are creeping up gradually. And in Europe, in the UK, for instance, in Spain, in France, in Italy, we are hearing of a resurgence. So I think the IMF had looked at the whole scenario and looked at the easing of lockdown as to make a fresh projection, and then said positively things might ease off. So the negative rate the negative growth that we talked about earlier in March, reduced a little. Now, I think it works across the different economies. And then they came to Nigeria and also reduced that a bit, because you can see that the economy is beginning to pick up in terms of easing of lockdowns, and then economic activities beginning to take place. So if economic activities do take place, then instead of a high negative growth rate, they are going to have that reduced a little. But with regards to inflation, we still tied to oil. Nigeria is dependent on the export of oil, and you find that this dependency, is such that if you're going to do anything to prop up your currency, you have to be earning quite a lot of money. And we are not seeing any sign that is going to ease off anytime soon. And then food prices are up as a result of different activities taking place. We had the flood recently. We spoke to one analyst who continued to hammer on the fact that farmers are not really going to the farms. The food basket zones, if you have it across, a lot of food comes from the north, northeast and northwest. And these areas are the high point of these clashes, and farmers are not going to the farms. So we're going to see how pressure come from that. And then you're going to have pressure come from government just gave a reprieve of tariff of a reprieve of 1 week, 2 weeks, and then I think they've extended that again in terms of electricity tariff. So you have that feeding in, into inflation. You have the valuation of the naira, in terms of they want the IMF. One of the conditions that they gave for, I think it was the World Bank, for allowing us to have some what's it called, the facility that we asked for, was that we should. The exchange rate should be, there should be a uniform exchange rate. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to do that, you're going to look at the market. In the market, the exchange rate is doing 480, 480 and so on. And if that's going to be the ruling price, that's going to feed into inflation. So there are a number of things that are still out there, that will impact on inflation. Whether the IMF brought down negative growth from 4.4 or so, or to 4.3, right. You're going to still have that feeding on inflation. Okay. So the inflation situation is not going to ease anytime soon.
Meanwhile, readers can find the revised IMF World Economic Outlook on page 12 of the paper. And of course, you mentioned food inflation, which happens to be the major driver, standing at 16.66%, which takes me to my next headline of interest on page 8, World Food Day. Prioritize investments in food systems. Of course, we saw that that one was on the 16th of October. With the theme Grow, Nourish and Sustain. Now, what more can you tell us about this Feed Africa initiative? And is Nigeria tapping into this program?
What you will see from that report is that you take it back to the fact that across the global economy, Africa, in terms of areas available for farming, landmarks for farming, Africa is still a virgin territory, a virgin area for that to happen. But Africa doesn't appear to feed itself. So you have the current African Development Bank president, who was a former minister of agriculture in Nigeria, who has taken some of the ideas that he was pushing, or he pushed when he was a great minister in Nigeria, into the African Development Bank, and began to push this initiative for Africa to be able to feed itself. So the African Development Bank is actually trying to mobilize the entire continent, to be able to do that. Now, on the occasion of the World Food Day, we got an update from one of the vice presidents of AFDB, talking about the need, and what the AFDB is doing. Now, is Nigeria tapping into what the AFDB is doing? No, there are two issues that here. We know that the African Development Bank is supporting the the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture based in Ibadan, in terms of research and what they are doing with regards to food production. There's one thing about recently there was a report that the IITA, has helped in developing a special variety, African Nigerian centric special variety of cassava. Remember that we are the highest cassava producing nation in the world, and they have come up with some varieties of cassava, cassava seed, right, for agricultural sector in the country. Okay. Now they are contributing to what is going on at IITA, and then what we believe has happened is that when Additional was Minister of Agriculture. He brought out this what you call agricultural transformation agenda. Which he developed across the Nigeria. He has taken. We believe that he has taken that to the AFDB and wants to replicate that across the entire African continent. So we also observe that the AFDB is supporting the Nigerian seed sector. Agriculture starts from the type of seedlings that are grown, that what's called farmers grow. So there's a lot of effort being made in that direction in terms of supporting our seed sector. You have different varieties. I think one of the things that Africa has suffered for a very long time is that because there isn't much scientific input into farming. So the variety of seeds that you find that is used in Africa isn't the type that will produce well for a small number of land area.
All right,
so
Philip.
A lot is going into that to help the seed sector.
Okay, we'll let readers pick up that story on page 8 of Business AM. We'll draw the curtain here on News Express today. We'll reach out to you on Friday for a review of developing stories. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Philip Isakwa is the publisher, Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. The market analysis coming up in a moment.